I'm here in central London with Vijay Malaya, one of India's most celebrated tycoons. Mr. Malaya, who's made a fortune from various industries such as beer, spirits, cricket, Formula One and football, and a now defunct airline, Kingfisher, is described by the Indian government as a fugitive from justice. He's had his passport withdrawn. Mr. Malaya, are you going to return to India, and do you think you can reach a settlement with the banks?
I definitely would like to return to India. Right now, things are flying at me fast and furious. My passport has been revoked. I don't know what the government is going to do next. But I have always maintained that notwithstanding anything else, I am interested in a settlement with the Kingfisher Airline bankers and would like to repeat that I will reach out if they are interested in making a settlement.
And you've made an offer of £440 million?
That is correct.
And are you prepared to go higher?
Well, the banks need to also consider the fact that there are other creditors who also need to be paid off and satisfied. I can't possibly be seen to be giving preference to the banks just because of this extraordinary pressure being put on me by various government agencies.
Who is behind the move to withdraw your passport?
I wish I knew.
Are they faceless bureaucrats, or is it the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, who is a noted, austere figure?
All I can say is that the manner in which my passport was first suspended and then revoked is unprecedented and was done with extraordinary haste.
You heard about it on a Saturday evening?
Absolutely.
By fax?
By email. But be that as it may...
and you had 7 days to respond, is that right?
Well, the first notice of suspension came on a public holiday last week. I replied, and my reply was not considered, and the passport was revoked on Saturday.
Do you think that you will have to sell down some stakes in other businesses in order to raise money to reach an overall settlement? And would you be willing to do that?
I have already expressed my willingness to settle with the banks. A settlement offer was proposed to the Honourable Supreme Court of India, which obviously means it was a very serious offer. And now the Supreme Court has directed the Debt Recovery Tribunal to dispose of the main matter in 2 months. But notwithstanding that legal process, my offer for settlement stands. And
what is the amount that you believe is the outstanding debt that is owed as a result of the collapse of Kingfisher Airlines? 520 million pounds?
The filings before the Debt Recovery Tribunal by the consortium of bankers is of a principal amount of little over 500 million pounds. The rest is towards unapplied interest.
Right. And the banks say it's 900 million.
Well, I don't know whether it's the banks or the media or a combination of the two.
A dangerous combination.
Indeed. But that's how India is. I have never been able to understand where this 9,000 crore or 900 million figure came from. But as I said, if there is reason and rationale all around, I think the banks can be settled along with all the other creditors.
Now, you're known in the Indian media and in the Indian public as the king of good times. You're often described as flamboyant. You've attended parties, you travel around. Can you explain whether this is you think this is a fair characterization, or do you think that actually you were just, say, a brand ambassador?
I think those who need to know certainly know that I have acted as a brand ambassador for my brands in a media dark environment.
Which means there's a prohibition on advertising for alcohol.
Absolutely. And this King of Good Times label was actually a slogan for the Kingfisher beer brand. For whatever reason, I was known as the King of Good Times, and now, of course, indeed, the King of Bad Times. You know, it's past me now to figure out what I should have done or should not have done.
Do you think you made any mistakes?
Oh, sure, I must have made many mistakes.
Did you misjudge the public mood as it turned against the kind of flamboyant multimillionaires in business in India?
You know, we are in a democracy in India. I have been labelled a willful defaulter, which I just cannot understand. We have invested over £610 million into Kingfisher Airlines. We tried everything conceivably possible to save the airline. A combination of macroeconomic factors and then government policies
Oil went up to
unfortunately
$150.
could not save Kingfisher. But notwithstanding all that, I have lived my life in my normal way. People think I'm flamboyant. Actually, I'm quite simple.
That's quite a flamboyant tie.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong in wearing a colorful piece of clothing. But to cut a long story short, I've worked hard all my life. I want to try and settle with these banks and then live my life in peace. And that's my focus right now.
Do you think that you will ever be able to go back into business in India?
Well, I currently have businesses in India which I don't intend to sell. And these businesses are doing very well. You asked me whether I could go back to India. Well, if I had a passport, I could. But right now, I'm in forced exile.
Vijay Mallaya, the forced exile, the man described as a fugitive from justice, but who says he's willing to settle with the banks.
Not only that, willing to clear my name and prove to the agencies concerned that I am absolutely not guilty of any one of these preposterous charges of diverting funds out of Kingfisher Airlines and buying properties and stuff like that.
Just to be clear, that's your contention, your word is that you have never diverted money from your companies overseas to fund either your family or your personal interest.
That is absolutely correct and forms part of my sworn affidavit before the Honourable Supreme Court of India. And if our government so decides, let them appoint the world's best forensic auditor to come and audit the accounts of Kingfisher, audit how all the bank loans were utilized, and I'm sure they're not going to find anything because that is the truth.
Vijay Malaya, thank you for talking to the Financial Times.
Thanks.